Oh,
So,
okay, yeah.
all right, we
There
are
you go.
on now.
All right.
So, so this is Alex Ojeda. That's how you pronounce your name, right?
It's Alex Ojeda.
Ojeda.
But Ojeda's close enough. I've had, trust me, I've had every kind of thing in the world.
That must be Spanish, huh?
Yeah, it is Spanish.
Okay.
Ojeda, 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 Ajita, just everything in the world. If I see it, somebody goes, Alex, I go, that's me.
Right. Well, mine. We always pronounce our name Castellanos, but it's Castellanos, obviously.
Yeah. No, I love your last name, man. It's like,
Yeah.
what is it? Like the castles?
Well, Castellanos actually in some countries means just Spanish speaking.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
Castellano. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Like,
spelled differently.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's spelled a little differently. But yeah.
I don't know what, I don't know where that, I don't know the origin story of that or
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
but
So is your background have you ever done a DNA on yourself?
never.
You probably shouldn't, but everybody in your family probably has, so it got you
Right.
anyway. But
Well,
yeah, so if you find out, like my wife did one on her dad and her and herself, and then she got me into it, and I resisted, but I finally did it. And so we're Portuguese and Spanish on that's where my last name. Actually, I'm not related to this last name. It's a long story. My last name should be Salazar, actually. That's my grandmother's maiden name. But it should be if it was my actual grandfather, who is Dutch, Burnsworth.
okay.
So
God,
Burnsworth, you know. So,
yeah.
so anyway, yeah, but I have the last name of Ojeda because all my aunts and uncles and cousins and everybody is Ojedas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but Castellano, I've always loved that one.
Yeah. It's a hard one for up in Minnesota.
Right, right, right. But those Spanish names that are a mouthful, they sound so awesome,
Down in
apparently.
Florida, there's a lot of Castellanos, but not,
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of Ojedas down here. I
yeah.
say Ojeda in passing, it's Ojeda. So it's
Oh,
like Ojeda.
got it.
But yeah, so my name would have been Alejandro, but my dad named me Alexander.
Got it.
Yeah. And
So,
I don't have a middle name, so that's it.
so yeah, just I'm just curious, like, so there's a lot of Alex is like the permaculture master,
Oh
the
yeah.
Earthship master.
Well,
You are the master at everything.
I'm more of a jack of all trades, not a master of anything.
Well,
However, I have
you
been doing it long enough that to some people I probably do look like a master.
you
So I
seem to be
appreciate that.
when you find a topic, you seem to really get obsessed with it
That's me.
because you're like an encyclopedia of
Mm.
whatever you're tackling. And
I
that's
absolutely love things. I get so excited about them, I swallow them up. I
yeah.
mean, when I found we were sitting there watching Hurricane Katrina in 2005, I want to say it was. And there was a show on HGTV because I can remember where we were too. And they had a show and it was called Extreme Homes. And Mike Reynolds pops up and he's got all these cans and tires but it doesn't look in those days he didn't really have his act together. It wasn't real slick and like it is now. But I saw this thing and he was like, okay, I build these houses out of cans and tires and they stay anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees inside. Because in those days, that was the temperature swing. So it was about a 20 degrees temperature swing. He says, but we're refining it. We're going to get it. We think we can get it down to like, shave like 5 to 10 degrees off of that, keep it in the middle there somewhere. And it captures its own rainwater and it does this and it does that. Because remember, in those days, he still wasn't doing the greenhouses across the front, which that's one of the things that really, really tightened things up. And so it was like, wow, that's really cool. Well, anyway, so I think we saw an Earthship on another show eventually, but my daughter was born in 2006. Do you have kids? I can't remember. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, when the kids are born, your life is like, it changes quite a bit and you're busy with that. So you don't have a whole lot of time of thinking about other things. But once we started, just flowing into it and things were trucking along, it was about 2008. I went to Charleston and I went to a guy that was converting little cars into electric cars. So so we would pull out the engine and it was basically a training class. It took days and I paid him a whole bunch of money and He taught me how to convert cars into electric cars. So ultimately, I had a Chevy S10 that had been converted. We'd convert it to electric, and it wasn't wonderful, but it was great. And I could, conceivably use solar panels to recharge it, and that was so cool. But then, but then with the Earthship thing, I woke up, and I want to say it was 2009, and I went, it had to have been, and I went, oh my God, I got to go learn how to build one of those Earthships. So I got on the web and I found out they had a website. They got a website. I mean, literally, I was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. That's how I just popped into my lucid sleep. I was, whoa, I jumped up. And then it said, location builds. I was like, I'm gonna go find them, and it says we have a build in November of 2010. It's gonna be in Taylor County, Georgia. I was like, are you kidding me? Which they've never even come close to this area again after all that, right? In 15 years. And so I said, for the love of God, I'm signing up to this. And I signed up to it. And I had to like start figuring out how to get, I had a regular job and how to get the time off and all that. And I could take what was it, 1 week at the beginning and 1 week at the end. I don't know if you remember me that much in the build, but I had to miss the 2 middle weeks so I could go back. So I took all my vacation, but it couldn't be contiguous because of the business I was in. And I felt like if I took it at the beginning, I'd see how they started, how they broke ground, and then I could see how they finished it. And I'm a construction guy, so I was like, I could figure out that middle part. You know, no, you do need the middle part, but but I learned that over the time. But oh my God, I was so excited. I said, I better train because this is hard labor. So I was getting up every morning at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock and walking miles and running and doing this and lifting weights and doing this and doing that. And sure enough, I got all my camping gear together, got the old Scout. The Scout's still sitting right over there, still runs like a champ. And as a matter of fact, there's videos online of that build. I don't know if you know that or not. And you can see the Scout in the background. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
there's my truck.
Hmm.
And we're all in it. We're all in it. And see, like somebody that was one of the builders, one of us, the videotaped it and put it up on her channel. So if you told me to find it, I think I downloaded it, but if you tell me to find it right now, I don't know if
Yeah,
I could.
it was I think it was
You're
Maria,
right. Yeah,
Nico's. Uh,
exactly. Good
wife.
memory.
Hmm.
But anyway, so that was a lot of hard work and it was amazing and met a lot of great friends and I in those days I was and a bit of an idiot myself and so I'm probably sure I said a bunch of things and did a bunch of things that pissed some people off, but at the end of the day it's all coming from the heart. And but we built that thing in a month. You could have moved in. I remember it was freezing outside, like literally 30 degrees. We showed up in all of our bundled up gear, stood right in front of one of those tire walls, and took off everything to the t-shirts.
Yes.
It was already warm.
Yeah, exactly.
And once they finished it, it was still, I mean, think about it, it was still November in North Georgia, which is still very cold.
Hmm.
And I mean, it wasn't, Minnesota cold, but it was pretty cold for down here.
Hmm.
And yeah, t-shirts. I said, this is it. This is what everybody should be building everywhere because we're
Hmm.
driving cars and those tires are getting thrown out. And they don't have any great way of doing much with them. So we need to do something with these tires. So let's figure this out, turn them into the houses and like, so, in my projects, I've already pounded up and taken out of the waste stream enough tires for my entire family for our entire lives,
Right.
including the ones we used before we even learned about Earthships. I just did the math. How often do we change them? And this is how, boom, I've used up all those tires and more. I've used other people's tires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we
Right.
were, and I haven't even built a full-size Earthship like you have, so you've probably done your entire family extended for the entirety of their lives. People don't realize it.
We have
So if
1,700 tires.
yeah, so if you do that, you're taking, and by the way, the whole time I'm building this, any anything that can't be composted that was in other words inorganic materials ended up in my tires pounded into the walls. So I haven't even had trash per se
Hmm.
for a decade, as I've been building this because I've been building these projects for about a decade. So could you imagine? Because carbon is nothing. Carbon is a joke. It's a lie. And I'm sorry if anybody is offended by that, but carbon is a lie. Open your mind, feel the force. You know it is true. At the end of the day, carbon is growing a shit ton more plants on this planet than we had before. We're not hotter. We're not boiling. If anything, I'm experiencing much colder temperatures all through winter and summer and summer. Down here, if you're sitting in the shade and it's not sweaty, hot, nasty, then you know that there's something going on. You know,
Hmm.
in the middle of summer, I used to joke, it's 900 degrees in the shade down here. Well, now there's a cool breeze year round. You're under the shade. It's like being up north now. And I've got experience in both places. So I'm very much impressed with how cool it's gotten. Well, at the same time, you might even say that carbon has something to do, CO2 has something to do with that. But actually, if you look at the 800-year cycles, and you can see the Roman time periods very well documented in paintings and in writing, and the medieval time period, paintings and writing, and then today, paintings, and there's been a couple in the middle there. The paintings will show things that are currently frozen, thawed.
Hmm.
Okay. The writings talk about things that shouldn't exist where they're writing. And you might think, well, that's fiction, except it's not fiction. They're literally writing full on accounts. Geologists go down and they see things throughout the history of the planet. They see these cycles happening. And I'm not sure what causes them necessarily, but we have 800-year cycles. The people, botanists that dig and look for plants and that kind of thing, they find plant material in certain places that shouldn't exist, and it's in 800-year cycles. Well, we're currently over the top of an 800-year cycle. And by the way, lately, since the Roman time period, the hot has been less hot. There's smaller apexes, and the troughs are getting deeper. So we're actually moving into a colder. Remember in 78, I don't know when you were born, Chad, but in 78, let's see, if you're 40, if you just turned 40, that means that you were born in 72?
85.
No, 80, 85. Yeah, I'm
85.
doing my math. I'm doing my math based on my wife. 85. I'm like, holy crap, I should have known that one.
Mhm.
Um, and so 85 is the year I graduated high school, just so you know. Just so you
Okay.
It was a good year.
Mhm.
85 was a good year. That was the last of the great years of the 80s. After that, it went off the rails. But you had some good years in the 90s too, I'm sure.
Mhm.
But early 2000s wasn't too bad. But where was I? But if you look at the way this works, we also have 11-year cycles, and I think they're related to the sun, right? And this isn't pseudoscience. Science. This is absolute. Science is observation. It's the proper collection of data. And if like into soil science, right? So if you know about tests, you can think you're getting a reading and you're wrong because you've got it calibrated wrong or you're using it wrong or whatever. And by the way, you can learn how to use it wrong to show people something they want to see.
Mhm.
And then you can make money if they want to see it that way. So
Mhm.
I know how tests in scientific data are gamed, and I know it intimately. And no, you don't want to do that. So there is a science in obtaining data correctly. Okay, actual data. And the only way to do that is to cross-reference it across other modalities to really be sure. In other words, okay, I have a thermometer right here outside in the shade. I have a thermometer in the house, in the yurt. I have a thermometer over there, and I have a thermometer over there. And all of them, when I bought them, were reading the same in the store. Now
Mhm.
go into a store and look at the thermometer section. They're all over the place. Now, am I sure that it's exactly the temperature that I say it is? Okay. Now I go get a thermometer from another store and I come and I get it. So you have to take your thermometer from a one store to another store and buy the thermometer that says see, you don't know what they did in the factory. Did they get it right? Some of those, there's three that say one thing, there's three that say another thing, there's three that, you know what I'm saying? So you don't know.
Mhm.
And then you look at how they collect the data someplace, right? And this all bears back to the Earthships, by the way. So we'll get
Mhm.
there. The way they collect the data in places is no longer any good. It's supposed to be out on a pole 6 feet covered from the sun because the sun will directly relate, right?
Yes.
So you want ambient temperature.
Mhm.
Okay. And the ambient temperature comes from the land too. So it's supposed to be in a grassy field. Now, if you put it next to, as you know, with earthships and earth science, the way we learned it, if you put it next to a masonry wall, it's going to be way hotter there. How many of those, like, so if I build a building and I keep getting closer and closer to the temperature station, it's getting warmer and warmer the closer I get. And all it has to do is be a bright colored wall, and I'm literally blasting it with heat,
Mhm.
so, year round. So how many of those stations throw off my entire curve as I'm collecting data across the world? Well, it doesn't take much before it looks like, oh, they're getting hotter. Um, but at the same time, we could be telling everybody it's getting hotter when it's actually getting colder, and vice versa.
Right.
So somebody has to go out there and make sure that the testing equipment is legit. And when I have my thermometers against another thermometer, against another thermometer, against another thermometer, I start to at least say, okay, I have all these thermometers synchronized, like my watch, synchronize your watches, synchronized. It doesn't even matter what time it is or what temperature it is. But over the year, as I do it, I see a rise 10 degrees. See, again, it doesn't matter what the temperature is because I can't be 100% sure, but I know it's gone up 10 degrees. Now, if I do this year after year after year, I go, okay, well, it didn't get up to 10 degrees on average or whatever, so you do your numbers. So science is about trying to figure out how to even figure out how to come up with a number. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you look at the climate models, they're all over the place and they're constantly being changed. Well, if they're constantly being changed, then the climate models we've been following for 20 years now, were they all bogus? Because you've changed them quite a bit now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They were either perfect or they're not. And people go, well, you've got to change the things and then we're going to, yeah. But so you look at the data and the data isn't showing what you're saying.
Hmm.
But they just say that it is.
Right.
But you look at the raw data. And by the way, this is what a load of people are doing. They're going out looking at the raw data. They're not seeing what you're saying. And so, oh, well, this one scientist said, and you're going to go against all these other scientists. Well, the 1,500 scientists that work for the IPCC, who are basically um, UN scientists, are basically curated by this one editor. And the one editor goes through and reads their papers and says, oh, we're into global boiling,
Right.
which makes a lot of money and gives a lot of bankers a
Yeah.
lot of money and a lot of, control and power and governmental and political and all that. But then when you look back at the people, the reactions to the people on that are even in the UN's team, how did you get that from my paper?
Hmm. Hmm.
I was reading their individual reactions. So few of them actually agreed with what the editor, the curator said.
Right.
So yeah, as far as the carbon and the temperature changes and everything, we're going through normal cycles. And yes, it's going to feel again every 11 years. So if you're coming down 800 years, you're never going to know. If you live 100 years, you're only living an eighth of that. But every year there's that 11-year cycle where it gets a little bit warmer and a little bit colder and a little bit warmer and a little bit colder based on the season before. And by the time you get through your 100 years, it's noticeably colder, but you're an old man and you die, or hotter, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you have to rely on recorded data, and the only way to record data past 150 years, which is nothing, right,
Correct.
is looking at people's writings, the geological record, paintings. You see what I mean? You see where I'm going with this? It's like,
Yeah.
you've got to cross-reference all of
Yeah.
that, and these guys have said we're in a normal cycle.
Most models suck. Most
Yeah,
anyone that tries to predict the future, even 10 years out with a computer model,
hmm
even for how sincere they would be with it, I mean, there's just a little bit of a hiccup that could screw up that data point, and then it just like, for example, like Florida was supposed to be underwater, I think by now.
I used to be in that camp, man. I was there.
I was as well, but and a lot of people that are inspired by Earthships are probably upset that we're even talking about this. But like
Sure.
at the end of the day, it's like that's not what it's not just about this CO2 global warming thing. It's just something that makes absolute sense from an environmental perspective, from a economical perspective, and just from like sustainability. Like
Right.
I feel like the Earthship concept is like just thermal mass alone is
hmm
something that is should be entertained in everyone's in our entire construction model.
Absolutely.
Now, so how?
Can I finish up on something? I want to
Yeah,
make one
yeah.
little final
Sorry.
comment. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, being a scientist, being boots on the ground, actually taking this data and actually living with it, slowly but surely took me out of 100% in this one camp to where I am today. I want to say that either camp is a moot point.
Hmm.
And so here's the beautiful message of Earthships and its sustainability and everything. It's all about pollution. Okay. It's always been about pollution. If we can stop polluting the world, everything's going to be healthier and happier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether we are causing the problem or whether it's natural, okay, doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, if we're causing the problem, do you honestly think we're going to be able to stop that? People are like, oh, well, don't be so negative. Well, you're going to have to kill off a lot of people.
Yes,
Which ones of us are going to volunteer for that? Oh, it's
correct.
always going to be somebody else.
100%.
Now, or we could build earthships, which then, think about this, puts us in a situation where we're not burning the energy to heat and cool water. Um, our waste products are being reused and used on the landscape safely. Growing your own a percentage of your own food. And by the way, food is a huge deal. All the food that we eat in the world, everybody's freaking out about how it's produced. Produce it yourself. Just produce 10% of it yourself. If all of us produce 10% of it ourselves, 40% of the food grown for human consumption is thrown away out of our own kitchens. Think about what's thrown away in in restaurants. Think
Mm-hmm.
about what's thrown away in the transit. We grew, I don't even know what that number is. I mean, let's just be super conservative and say it's 40%. If somehow we could shut down a fraction of that 40% by just growing 10% ourselves, that actually takes out a huge amount that's grown for us, which is probably 20%. You see what I mean? So I'm just saying, I don't have the numbers, but if I'm taking 10, if I take 10% out of this overall system that's growing food for us, then if I'm taking myself out of that, I'm taking a larger chunk than what I'm even growing because they're not even having to transport it and lose it. Because they lose a certain amount by just to get it to me. So it doesn't matter what the problem is or who's causing it. We could stop pointing fingers at each other. We can learn to love each other again, which would be so super amazing, and help each other. Because then we could help each other build earthships, rainwater capture, be healthier, growing our own food. If you're a vegan, I know a lot of vegans that actually do have animals. Those animals are family members. Look at the Hare Krishnas. The cows are their family members, but the cows eat the brush and turn the brush into fertility for the fields. They plow their fields, which we wouldn't do, but they plow their fields and use that fertility in there. And then over time, they have healthy food growing as they live their lives. So in permaculture, one of the things that we know is that, and it's absolutely true, is that the more I grow food in my garden, the better my soil is. Okay? This is
Mm-hmm.
something people don't realize. I'm not adding fertility. The plants and the garden and the communities of organisms in that soil are the fertilizer. And the more I grow, the more I eat out of my garden. This is for another day. This could be another podcast. The more I eat from my garden, the more food is in my garden. That sounds incredibly silly to people. What? Yeah, oh, yeah. No. What we do in conventional farming, by the way, I'm not an advocate of we need to stop farming. Okay, that's crazy. You need to do that after you have most people living in an earthship growing their own food. You can't do that. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
now in the modern earthships, not only can I have gardens surrounding my earthship that are 3 times bare minimum more productive than conventional gardening, and if you're worried about carbon, they put out these articles about how home gardeners are causing more carbon than conventional farming. There is no way. Now, see, this is just people who want to control us. Stop falling for the lies. It's so many lies are just out there everywhere because they just want you to line up and get this product and line up and oh, we're going to scare you and everything. No, no, no. You could have your earthship surrounded by gardens, and the whole front of the earthship in the biocell is a garden. My God, you'd be able to grow easily 50% of your food with very little labor. You just have to be mindful of it. It's a little bit of a lifestyle change, but it's not a massive lifestyle change. You'll still be going to the beach. You'll still be flying to Maui or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, so these things aren't the end of the world. Now, um, you're taking all the trash out of the, and people are like, I don't want to live in a pile of trash. Well, the thing is I cement everything in. You don't see the tires. I make sure that it doesn't even touch the soil underneath the building. So they're completely encased. They're just like, I mean, most of the people's houses are built out of far more toxic garbage than tires, honestly. Remember the white papers on the subject that Mike shows you all the time? Harvard, I think it was a Harvard study that showed that the tires, after they've been run for 50,000 miles, which most of them are,
Right.
aren't have
You
almost
can
no toxins in
smell
them.
you can
Yeah.
smell a new tire and smell
Oh
a
yeah.
used tire and you put it in the same room or put it in a different room and you can smell the off gas. So
Totally different world.
yeah.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, what I'm doing is I'm getting all the trash out and I'm keeping, and people are like, well, but cement causes carbon and this and that. And I'm like, look, again, I'm not really into a carbon, but let's figure out how to not argue about that. Because
Right.
remember, if we're arguing, then we're not coming together and building a better world. And so
Right.
if you really are about building a better world, it's arguing with somebody about something is not the answer. So I say, look, so I get the Portland cement, which is a bunch of minerals. It's basically just minerals, they're natural minerals. And
Yeah.
I don't buy ready mix cement. Now you can buy, I'm not going to judge you if you buy ready mix cement, but I just get the Portland cement powder and I mix it with a soil that's on my property. Now, if I don't have the proper soil, to mix with it, I have mixed it with clay. I have mixed it with sea sand. I have mixed it with almost powdery sand because we have both powdery sand and clay out here. All of it has worked. Clay cracks a little bit more, and then I just throw stuff in the middle there and it's fine. So at the end of the day, I haven't bought somebody's sand from across the world and had it trucked to me. I just bought the powder.
Right.
And so one bag is like 4 times the amount of cement as ready mix in one bag. You see
Correct.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
And it depends on how I mix it. Sometimes it's 2 times and sometimes it's 3 times, but most of the time it's 4 times.
Yes.
So I can mix it different ways. And even if you have ready mix, you could add more sand to a ready mix bag.
Mhm.
That when they sell you ready mix, that's like so you can drive cars on it. But if you really just need it to be a stucco, you could put 2 more full bags worth of sand in there and you're good to go. Or what I usually do is I figure that it's 3 to 1 in a ready mix bag. So a third is the powder and 2/3 is sand. So I could actually add another 2/3 of sand into that ready mix bag. And that's basically the math, right? So anyway, at the end of the day, you're almost using no carbon. You are taking lots of trash out. You're out of the waste stream. You are building a home that no matter how much embodied energy is in it, which by the way is far less than a regular house, going forward, you no longer need any utilities. You're capturing clean rainwater. People are like, oh, rainwater's got all this stuff from the air in it. If you can't drink that rainwater, you can't breathe either. Am I wrong? Think about
Mhm.
it. Because
Yeah.
you're really getting it. The rainwater is just running through the air. Now, if I was going to filter rainwater, well water, or city municipal water, rainwater is the cleanest stuff. Now you think well water, well, that's going to be really, really clean. If you ever did do a study on the well water, depending upon where you are, it goes from pretty clean to not clean at all.
Yeah.
So I
Hmm.
have a 5-stage filter in this yurt because our well water is terrible. But the rainwater off the back of this deck here, that rainwater is 4 parts per million of total dissolved solids. I can run that through 15. I could run that through jeans pants material. Just basically tie a knot in the leg of a pants, pour it through there. And at the end of the day, I don't like using that statement so much. It's annoying, but when I'm done with my research, I do the same thing, and I've got a cleaner product. And even if there's some lint in there, that lint's not going to hurt me. So anyway, it's easier to clean things. So if we are going to talk about trying to be uh, good for the planet and real ecologists, the trick is to not say somebody has to die. You know, our
Yeah.
populations have to go down. I have a theory that we could have 100 billion people on this planet.
Yeah.
We just have to stop with this constant
Design it,
pollution.
design it correctly, and
Yeah,
we will have no problem.
yeah, truly. And the whole thing, we shouldn't have to live in some kind of an authoritarian, totalitarian world where you have no freedoms or rights to do anything. Because when you have the freedom to do something, a percentage of the population, trust me, it's not everybody, a percentage of the population is going to come up with neat new cool ideas, and that's really, to me, precious, and I would hate to lose that.
Yes.
There's a massive number of people that are just going to get up, eat breakfast, do whatever it is they do for work, and that may be awesome, may not be, and it doesn't matter. Make babies and die of old age, and that's cool, whatever, because that's life, and life is worth living. And then there's a certain percentage of the population that, and by the way, it could be through who knows what reason, but there's a catalyst that sets them off and they come up with some neat new ideas. So there needs to be a certain number of us to come up with some great ideas. Like one of the thoughts where, They say in India, there are more geniuses in India than there are people in the United States because of the population, because of the numbers, but they don't have the resources and the opportunities that we have. Now, could you imagine if we started building earthships for everybody everywhere
Right.
and limited the authoritarianism that's going on, right?
Yeah, it gives you freedom for sure.
Yeah.
It gives you security.
This is where the United States has really shined over its life. And yeah, it's been good, it's been bad, but it's
Mhm.
shined in that I can buy a certain amount of property, and on my property I could have my community and we can live here. You can't do it everywhere, but in a lot of places you can.
Mhm.
And then we can do the crazy things that we wanted to do and learn stuff. And this is how the Mike Reynolds of the world and the Bill Mollisons and the um, uh, Vandana Shivas of the world. I was thinking, she's over in India, but still, all over the world in places where you can get a piece of property, learn a lot of cool things, and now with the internet, share it across the world. Then this is what we should be trying to do. And again, the world has limiting factors. The day the planet can't support us, we will just stop living. You see
Yes.
what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so instead of us trying to pretend like we know when that is, let's just like love one another,
Live
go out
your
there, build
best
the world.
way.
The minute I have an Earthship, I don't need as much. I don't need insurance. Like I said, they probably won't insure you, but you got insurance. That's cool.
Yes,
But the one I'm building can't burn. There's no wood on it.
correct.
I've even used steel girders, and I got them when they were cheap as hell. You can't buy them now, but
Mhm.
it's going to come back around. It's a cycle. It's always a cycle. You know how that is. You're in the construction business.
Yes.
Um, the tires, the minute they're covered, even when they're not covered, there's not enough surface area to catch fire.
Yeah.
They're not going to burn. Can a hurricane blow my building? No, a hurricane cannot touch my building. First of all, here, I'm going to see if you can see it. It's not, the outside is still needing some help, but
So your Earthship is you have a couple, don't you?
yeah, I do have a couple, and this is the one that's just outside of the yurt. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but this right here is a ramp up. So the ground level is way down here. So that's all earth. And see that white there? That's
Yeah.
an old billboard that was made with pond liner, so they couldn't use it. So they gave it to me. I have a pond line. Actually, I have steel girders with wood in between. All that wood was salvaged from the river. Yeah, whenever we have hurricanes, there's a lot of wood in the river. So I salvaged all this marine grade wood in the river and I put that between the steel girders. And then I coated it with that roofing tar, that you can just
Yeah.
have as a roof. So it's its own roof already. Then I put a pond liner down, a solid black pond liner. And I don't know if you can see it. There's no way for me to zoom in on this camera, but there are walls of tires going over the edge of each side of this. And then and then I'm putting this pond liner in here, and that will be adhered to the tires, and all of that in there will be filled with dirt, and that dirt will come all the way. Oh, yeah, I'm pointing at the screen, not here. Those are the tire walls that sit up 3 feet, right? It's not quite 3 feet, but it's three courses of tires. And when all that's done, that's going to be a living roof, and this will all be a garden. And you might think, oh, not with all of these tires and all this other stuff. Well, they're covered. They're covered, and the garden is going to be, all kinds of things. And I have my ways. I can line it with canna lilies, and they suck up a lot of the toxins if there were any. People put tires on the ground and grow plants in them all the time, and nobody's died, so we're good.
Right.
Anyway, so that's going to be 3 feet higher, and it's going to be 3 feet higher all the way down. It'll probably come all the way down to the base. You see my bike projects there, but to the base of my Earthship here, or on my yurt here.
So it's gonna go all the way
Yeah,
almost to where you are right now.
all the way over. And you can't really make it out probably because it's not high def. There's a cylindrical Earthship here. That looks like a hill because it goes all the way up to the top of the tire wall.
I can
That's
kind
12 tire walls tall. And if you really can see, there's a dome made out of rebar. And that just needs to be cemented in. And then I put my pony wall across the front, add glass. That one's done. So that's two of them. This one's 100% an above ground root cellar. I've got iron security doors. These two walls come out on both sides. There's going to be a big wooden door. That's going to be built up with 3 feet of soil. So that'll be even with the top of this tire wall here. At the end of the day, this is a fallout shelter. It's fireproof, windproof. If a tornado came through here, people say, there's a problem with that tree because it'll fall over. These trees fall over and they just pull up their roots. There's almost nothing there. So what I'm going to do is guy line that tree down if a storm started to come through here because I love that tree and I want it. And it looks rough in the winter, but summertime comes around. This is all shady and beautiful.
Sure.
Um, but like, what is that? Oh, oh, that's right here on this pole. This little thing right here is actually a little solar panel that runs my night lights. And
Okay.
anyway, I was like, what is that? So anyway, when this is all done, I can grow all kinds of stuff. I'm going to put vetiver grass in here and all that. But from Google Earth, it's going to look like my lawn.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, do I want every little, cretin in the world going, oh, what can we steal out there in the country? Oh, look at that thing and look at this thing. I want them to just see lawn. Because,
So,
you can use Google Earth to do nefarious things.
yeah.
We use it in permaculture. We use it for, looking at the land and trying to get an idea, get our bearings on a piece of property. I could live 100% here because it doesn't get that cold. I could live 100% here off of this wood for cooking. Um, energy wise, we have solar cookers. We have, I don't know if you can see it over there, but way over here
Oh, yeah, kind of.
is a solar shack, and there's solar panels on the other side of that go down all the way down. So there's sort of a big, angled thing, aiming at the sun. And I've made it so that I can angle them. I don't try to rotate them with the sun. That these are too efficient to worry about that. I just rotate them with the angle of the sun during the year. So every month I go and adjust them once, and they're all nickel iron batteries. So the nickel iron batteries never go bad. You just change the electrolyte in them, and the electrolyte is potassium hydroxide. And so each battery probably it's about 20 batteries for all of it, probably cost me about a grand. And then it's like I don't have to redo all my cables. I don't have to go buy all new batteries and throw the old ones out. I just change out the electrolyte, and the electrolyte becomes inert over time. And so I just store it because it's pretty caustic when you get it brand new. Um, and then my batteries are back to 100%, and they go for another 10, 20 years. So everything I'm doing out here is about longevity, not wasting as little as possible, and building up a homestead. This is just what I can show you because I've got projects going over here and a cabin over here, and I've got another 2 acres of hopefully one day paddock shift because we're thinking about getting mini zebus, and we're going to be able to make dairy and get the manure and if you're not falling in love with them because they're so cute, eat
Right.
some little tiny mini steaks.
Yeah.
But supposedly you process them like a pig because they're so little. They're about the size of a big pig in weight. But I would look at everything. Everything gets cycled. Everything is in a cycle. Everything gets recycled. My
So,
wife, my wife's about to go sunbathe on the top of the Earthship there. We call it the Winchester.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so she goes up there. That's awesome.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, because if you go on the other side, you get direct sunlight. It's really nice to get all that vitamin D. Her
sure.
name is Diana, so I call her my vitamin D. But
Um,
there you go.
did you, so when you started that, when did you start? So did you start like soon after our
Oh
internship?
man, let me tell you, I was so fired up about permaculture when I went and did the Earthship that I probably just blabbed on about permaculture. Oh God, we do this, do that, we can do this, we can do that. These things are gonna be amazing. Blah, 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 blah. And and I said, when I got back down to Jacksonville, I said, I'm going to start a group. I'm going to do that meetup thing. And I'm going to start a group. And it's going to be permaculture and earthships. Oh my God, we're going to change the world. Everybody's going to build one. And so I got down here. You know how you get on fire about a thing, I get down here and I start my permaculture group, and it was a permaculture action network. And I was just like, we're just going to install gardens. And so for like 4 years, I just used the Scout, loaded it up with manure, loaded it up with hay, loaded it up with wood chips, loaded it up with everything. And I would take it to a site and we'd build a garden on the weekend, like Saturday. Everybody would come together and build a garden. And then we'd draw names out of a hat and we'd go, yeah, we're going to go do your garden. And so everybody would come and help and help and help. And we installed garden after garden after garden after garden. It was wearing me out, wearing the truck out. But I did it for 4 years, but I'm not going to quit. We're going to do this. And people were like, yeah, let's build earthships. And then let me see, because in 2014, yeah, because 2010 to 2014, I bought this land.
Mhm.
I finally had the cash. Our savings and a cool piece of property and the price came together, and we were like, okay. And we bought it from a friend of ours, Brenda Starwalker, who's an amazing lady. Her name was Brenda Starr, legitimately, and she married Landon Walker, and so she hyphened it to Starwalker, and so that's why I call this the Starwalker Project. It sounds all hippie and everything, but it's a legitimate name. So I thought that was fun. And she said I could use the name for the project. So cool. Anyway, so I just came out here and it was just cleanup. It was a nursery at one point. So we're out in the middle of nowhere, and some guy had bought the land, and he grew old and passed away, and his sons decided to sell it. But it was a nursery, so it had a hoop house on it, an old, and I still have the pieces. They're going to go by. One of the things that's going to be behind this is the hoop house is going to go up on the walls, so it'll be a 20-foot tall hoop house. And so it'll be like a wallapini almost, but I can put tropical fruit trees in there because I'm telling you, it takes one freeze to kill them. And so I'll be able to have a tropical fruit greenhouse, and that's coming soon. That'll probably be next year. But anyway, so we had to clean up all the little the pots, the little plant pots that had just been blown everywhere. I have like everything around here is loblolly pines, but my land is oaks and maples and elms and just everything that this guy had that grew out of the pot. So I have this great variety of plants here, which is great, and I have loblolly pines. So yeah, I've even got a tulip poplar and a bunch of bay and a bunch of yeah, just all kinds of things. As I look around, I've got 3 or 4 different varieties of oaks. Some are evergreen and some absolutely go barren in the summer or in the wintertime. But I've planted a food forest on the top half of the property, but I've reforested the whole top of the property. So when you drive by, it just looks like somebody doesn't have developed land. And I don't want them to think anything's back here.
Right.
It's good, it's bad. Like if somebody does just figure out that somebody's back here, my neighbors can't see them murdering me and taking everything I have. So, but but so I have taken security, and my whole life is I've been into martial arts. So it's funny. Trust me, I don't think that I'm going to be able to take anybody in particular. I always just assume the other guy's going to be better than me. So I have to think of how I can force multiply, so anyway, my whole family has been through martial arts. Not enough. My girls need to do more, but at the same time, it's really just for health and all that. But like I said, since the 80s, I have been into what we called in those days survivalism. It was survival. I'm a survivalist.
Mhm.
And then I started to realize, you got to truck along a lot of junk, and I'm a young guy and I'm moving and I've got to truck along a lot of junk. And I thought, okay, so I got to learn how to like be one of those guys that knows how to live like the special forces guys. They give them a knife and they have to live out in the wilderness. So I figured I had to do that. So I started learning how to live off with just a knife, and then a little bit of cordage and this and that. And then I started to realize over time, you can make all that stuff too with plants. And you can start fires with plants. You don't even need matches. You don't need anything. You might need a knife. So where's the knife? The knife, the knife. So there's this basic tool set that you got to have. So, for years I was teaching earth skills because, it's all the same stuff. But survivalism got a bad name because the media got a hold of it. And of course, the establishment doesn't like you not needing them and, being able to survive without them. And there's probably, I don't know, of all the people I've known, they're all salt of the earth sweet people. So there's probably, somebody they focused on that did something crazy, which happens in every group,
Yeah.
everywhere. So all they did was just focus on that one guy, and then, oh yeah, survivalists are all psychos. And I don't know of anything in particular. I'm just assuming that because it became so uncool to be a survivalist, all the movies that was the crazy guy, and so anyway, fast forward to probably the 90s or the early 2000s, all of a sudden everybody's a prepper because you're prepping. Well, if you live down in the South,
Mhm.
you're a prepper or you're dumb because hurricanes will blow through. And even if it doesn't even affect you, your power's out
Yeah.
and it's out for a week. And it's out for a week when it's the most hot and humid because that's hurricane season. So you got to have water or you're standing in some kind of a line trying to get water. You got to have food or you're standing in the bread line. You know what I mean? You got to have energy or you're freaking hot and wet the whole time. Um, your food goes bad in the fridge, everything is a problem. So if you can just prepare for a hurricane, you're in so much better shape, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Now, I live in an area where I'd say probably every 4 to 5 years, a forest fire tries to blow through here. Now, luckily, I'm surrounded by all this top dollar, what do they call it, valuable tree farming. So they don't want those trees burning down. So they're always cool burning the tree area. So, we get a lot of smoke out here certain times of the year. We just went through that. So it's not right now, but a month ago. And when the Okefenokee Swamp, which is just north of us, tries to light on fire, because it lights itself on fire. I don't know if you know that. There are supposedly fires burning underground in the open spaces in the swamp. And it's not fires, it's like, when you're making charcoal, there's actually no fire, but it's the embers are burning and it's turning the carbon
Is it like
into
composting or what?
it's like somehow because it's a peat rich or whatever kind of environment that it keeps smoking, and then what happens is we'll have a drought that lowers the water level quite a bit, and then it dries up enough that it gets out, and then it lights things on fire, and it always heads south.
Mhm.
So it's very rare, but when it does, we have a road up here at the top of, and I say up here, it's miles away, but you can watch the fire maps on the web because they always have these fire maps of your area, right? And you can see the fire coming close to that road, and they stop it at that road every time. So, that's good. But I'm building a house that can go through a fire.
Mhm.
Now, the yurt will go up like a tinderbox. I mean, it is like it's designed to convect air, and that's the perfect thing for fire. It's fuel and air. I mean, all you
Mhm.
have to do is add the heat, and we're good to go, right? So the little cabin over there, it'd go up in a heartbeat. But, hopefully my little solar panel shack is far enough away. But see, I capture enough rainwater that even if somehow my pump died from the heat or for whatever reason, I'd be able to pump water. Like all those guys in Palisades in LA that just went down, they were using city water. Well, because they were living at the behest of the city,
Mhm.
providing water and all resources. That's not a way I want to live. I don't want to have to go to the grocery store. I don't want to have water coming out of the ground or your electricity but I don't mind having the option. But I want to be able to say, if you shut all that off, I don't care, at least for a year.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point is this, I want to live on my own accord, right? So so anyway, so that's kind of in my head the way I've been a prepper slash survivalist or whatever. Is that I don't want to just have a mass of stuff sitting in a basement somewhere, with my army helmet and a gun, waiting for the marauders to show up or the zombies or whatever. But at the same time, if I can live in a way that costs me less and less money every year, and that sets me free from all these systems, and honestly, I'm learning how to do it. I barely have touched honestly, I barely touched 1 acre. So 1 acre, um, and I'm growing probably 20% of my food. Now you got to realize, even though I'm into permaculture and it's all about food production as a bare minimum, right? This is just me piddling around, getting perennials in and having root crops going and developing soil. If I needed to ramp this up, I could ramp it up in one season. I could totally ramp it up, but I have to have enough food to get through that season. So I have that food, right? I've grown a ton of food and I bought a freeze dryer because I couldn't buy storable food that was organic. There's just nothing out there. I mean, there's an occasional like corn or something. I don't care. So I bought a freeze dryer so I could grow my own and put it away. But here's another thing that people don't realize is salvage stores. You ever heard of a salvage store?
Mhm.
Yeah, if you go out online or even just go to your GPS app and type salvage store and it'll say search nearby and you go click. Um, so some of the processed foods that we eat, because we try not to eat a lot of processed foods, but some of the processed foods we eat, like the seaweed snacks and stuff like that, they're like $4 a container. Well, the salvage store, they're $1.
Mhm.
And if you buy a ton of them, they're 50 cents.
Mhm.
Well, we also don't eat sugar. So if I want to use monk fruit, I'll get a little monk fruit thing. That's $13. Salvage store, it's $1. We just bought $1,300 worth of monk fruit for about 48 bucks. It's
Good.
50 bucks. Yeah. What was another one? I mean, just crazy things like that. So like there's a ton of stuff there, canned goods and all that kind of stuff. I only buy the organic stuff, and then I can throw it in the freeze dryer. Canned goods are only good for a certain amount of time, but freeze dried, most of that stuff, if it doesn't have an oil in it, most of that stuff will go 25, 30 years. So so getting yourself a freeze dryer and being able to put up food, there's three of us and a sweet little 50-pound dog, and we could eat a year off of what I've put away. Okay, which is a good start. But in that year, I can totally ramp up what I've got going. I have all the varieties of plants that we need. I just grow a modicum of these plants. We're talking about wild yams, cultivated yams, sweet potatoes. Sweet potato is not a yam, even though they call it a yam. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. Yam is Dioscorea family. Sweet potato is Ipomoea family. They're two totally different families. One is a morning glory, and the other one is a yam. So it's two totally different plants. We have citrus growing. We have pears. We have nectarines. We have peaches. The peaches are not doing so great. I need to put some new peaches in, I think. And I say that because I hesitate to chop trees down, and where I put them, I don't want to get rid of the trees, and they need more sunlight, you know. So they I'll probably get some new ones, and they're too big to move. But I've got it. You've heard of hugelkultur by
Hmm.
any chance? Yeah, hugelkultur. Hugelkultur, Hugelkultur, right? Kultur.
Hmm.
And it's an old German word that means hill culture. So you're growing on hills. I've got all that going in. I've got wood chip piles. I have a tractor that I got to get running again, but I have a wood chipper that I can run off the PTO, and I can take anything I take down and turn it
How
into soil.
how does the Hugel how well do the Hugel mounds work?
So if you go to my website or my YouTube channel,
Hmm.
I'll type it here. It's Star Walker Project. Okay. Look for the one that has a blue circle that looks like a little foot made out of stars because it's a Star Walker, right? And it's a big S. Star Walker Project, you'll see one that says Hugelkultur in the Sandy South. So it'll be a little bit different. I don't know what your soil type's up in Minnesota, but anywhere that it freezes and snows, the microorganisms try to dig down deeper, and your topsoil is as far as they go. Topsoil is it comes from microorganisms. It comes from soil life.
Hmm.
We don't have that. It never freezes. It freezes, but it never actually hard freezes. So, what is it? Topsoil is like just sitting on the top, and it's nothing.
Hmm.
So what you do is you get, all of the, as it's been said, all of the fertility is expressed in the plant life on the surface. So if I want to build a big cachet of topsoil, I dig a trench. Now the trench on flat land could be any shape, size, and orientation depending upon what you're trying to do. Obviously, east to west means you're going to have morning sunlight on the flat side of a hugelkultur, and then west, and then in the afternoon you'll have soil, sunlight on the west side of that hugelkultur. Now, if I orient it east to west, then I always have sunlight on the southern side of my hugelkultur mound, right? And then in
Hmm.
the winter, when it's really low, that one side never freezes, the other side might, right? So it depends on what you want to do, because sometimes you do that because you want really cold loving plants to be on one side, rhubarbs and that kind of thing. And then on this side, you want only the hot stuff versus, so anyway, basically that's a hugelkultur mound. But what you do is you throw everything that would make a great campfire and everything that would make a great compost pile in that trench.
No pine,
So
right?
logs like these logs here, you can even throw green logs in there because over time they eventually come out. Watch out that you're not throwing what are known as coppice tree logs because they will literally grow a tree from that log if it's not totally dried.
Same with pine. Pine isn't very good in Hugel culture.
I
Hugel.
try not to use pine because they have a lot of, terpenes and jugulone and all this other stuff that keeps things from growing. But
Hmm.
eventually pine breaks down and eventually you could
So
probably
like
use it.
if you put a little amount in there, it's probably not gonna be that.
Yeah, I'd still, if I have the option to not use it, I don't use it. I wouldn't use black walnut. I wouldn't use black locust. I wouldn't use, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like
How
that.
about I have a crap load of poplar
Oh
tree.
yeah.
I
Oh
have
yeah.
we have like a giant pile from building our house that's been sitting there for
Perfect.
4 years.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have pallets and they're heat treated and they're not treated with chemicals, you could throw those in there. That's wood.
Yeah.
And then coffee grounds,
But
kitchen
they
scraps.
work good.
Yeah,
Like you
manures.
water them very often and
Oh, yeah. So I don't even water anything.
hmm.
So as I'm building it, I'm soaking everything with water. Now, if I'm in a place where I don't have, because I've built them in places where there's no water, there's no well, miles away between the first water garden hose, I'd have to truck the water there. So what do? Okay, I've dug the trench. I'm looking at my watch, I'm looking at my GPS, I'm looking at my weather apps, and it says it's going to rain on Saturday. Oh, cool. We'll come in on Friday and we'll load it up and we'll wait for the rain. Or we'll just load it up now, wait for the rain to come, and then we'll throw the dirt on it. So
Hmm.
you can leave a bunch of wheelbarrows out, they'll fill up with a few inches of rain, buckets, and then you just douse everything with all that rainwater and you throw you throw the dirt over the top. I say dirt, here it's basically sand.
Sand, yeah.
So so if you have composted manures and compost and stuff like that, save a bunch of that and put that as a layer. Probably like if I throw enough dirt to make it level with the ground, then I'll throw a bunch of compost down there. All my wood, I want it to be underground completely. So I don't let any wood go any higher than the natural level of the ground. And I do that because I've never seen a termite, but I know what termites like. They like wood that goes on the ground or in the ground and sticks out too, because they want to live up here in the dry spot and go down and eat in the wet spot. So if it's all underground, they won't even touch that because it's just too wet. If it's sitting on the surface, they'll eat that bit on the bottom if it starts to hold water. But so you don't want to do that either, have it all laying around. So you put it all in the pit or the trench. It really looks like a trench. And then you throw the dirt in there. It's raining, you throw the dirt in there, then you throw your compost, and then you throw some more dirt on it, and then maybe a little more compost and maybe a little bit more dirt. Now, so often I don't even have compost. So I'm just saying that if you have it, that's how you would do it. You'd layer it so you can make it go further. I have a 150-foot long hugelkultur in the back here. So the minute I decide it's the end of the world, it's time to grow, I just start taking all the seeds, which by the way, plants give you so many seeds, it's silly. And I soak them in a bowl. And this is how I've done it. You can see it in my videos. I soak all the seeds. I just all the packets, and they all go into one bowl, and I soak them, and I let them sit there for about 6 hours, and then I go over to the hugelkultur mound, and I grab handfuls of them and just start throwing them at the dirt. And if you throw them in such a way, they fan out, like that. So like that, and I throw them at the dirt. And then I throw, if I have compost, I top it off with compost. If I don't, I just top it off with some sand, and then I top that off with hay. And for the most part, it's 8 to 10 inches of hay, loosely packed. So you take them off. They call it books. If you get like a bale of hay, they come off in like little 3-inch books.
Hmm.
Tear them apart and shake so it's all real loose. If you have straw, that's great. It's expensive. It's in our area, the straw actually grows, so you're going to get wheat and all kinds of stuff growing out of your thing, which by the way doesn't bother me. None of that bothers me. Weeds don't bother me. Weeds are amazing. Most of the weeds that grow are better than the plants I planted. If you start learning your weeds, you'll start to realize I just need a big pile of weeds and I'm good to go. Now you can get better calories out of your planted plants. So this is why I do it for sure. But their weeds are medicine and greens and chlorophyll and all that stuff that you need. So anyway, once I've got them all hayed up, then I surround the thing with wood chips. And I'm talking another 8 to 10 inches of wood chips as a path around the hugelkultur mound. And you might think that's a little silly. Well, maybe where you are it is, but down here, because it's all about trying not to dry out everything,
Hmm.
you think we get enough rain? Well, we do. We get a lot of rain, but because it's sand, it just goes
Yeah.
completely down and it's gone. So it's wet and then it's dry as a beach. No, dry as a desert.
Yes.
Okay. So it's wet as the beach, dry as a desert in a
Yes.
day or two. You can
Hmm.
dig down and it's all gone, right? So what I'm doing is I'm creating a sponge that sucks up all the water and holds it there. All
Yes.
that organic matter just sucks it and holds it, right? And also I'm not burning wood. Like if you're a carbon person, you worried about carbon, bury everything. Because if it's sitting on the surface, as it rots, it loses the carbon to the atmosphere. Bury it and use it. Turn it into new living plants who are then pulling more carbon out of the atmosphere as well as the ground. And remember, all that material is loaded with nitrogen. I don't even need nitrogen fixers or anything. Like I used to start off these gardens by throwing a lot of legumes on it and just waiting a season. And then I started to realize, well, what would happen if I just throw my plants on there? Let's see what would live. Because again, it's science, it's observation.
Hmm.
Everything lived. What was funny though is because of the way I do this, the seeds are all mixed up and I just throw them willy-nilly all over the thing. The carrots always wanted to grow at the base. Um, the root plants like to grow at the peak, all kinds of stuff. And I plant them in a weird sort of way too, because I'll put my summer plants across the top And as it starts to get warmer, and we're going into the summer through spring, which by the way, spring is as warm as your summer. So spring is basically summer. We grow everything in our winter what you grow in the summer, and then we grow in our summers what they grow south of us in the tropics in the summer because we get both kinds of seasons, right? So I put turmeric, I put arrowroot, I put edible cannas and all kinds of things across the top and sweet potatoes and that kind of thing. And they go dormant in the winter, and that's when all my broccolis and all the European veggies are growing, and then okra and all that. Okra doesn't you can't leave it in over the winter. It's a seed. It's got to come in. But basically, as the summer goes by, I can start just folding all the old material from the plants that I've eaten onto the top, throw more hay down, and then winter time rolls around. And well, see, as the winter starts to go by, I can take all the winter plants and fold them down. Let me say that it's all in my videos. And
Yeah.
then all the tropicals start coming out of the garden. They're powerful. They don't need any help, and they'll grow right through all that hay. And they come up, the yams and the sweet potatoes and everything, and all the gingers and everything. And then I can plant other summer plants, like if I want to have tomatoes really don't like the summer. They do where you're from. Here, they want fall and winter. Okay, so all of the Solanaceae, which is, the nightshade plants, they want to be in those margins, and they'll grow okay in our winter. They don't like to be frozen still, but they'll grow in our winter. And we do get freezes. Um, so anyway, that could be a whole different video where we talk about how all that works. But the hugelkultur mounds, they grow immediately. Like I literally plant them, and in 3 weeks I've got food.
Yeah.
Because a lot you can eat the leaves.
So we have some ashes that I've been saving. Would you so and then we obviously have the planter cells in the Earthship.
Hmm.
Recommend mixing some of that into the soil in the Earthship or not?
So ashes are, I would just check like what kind of soil do you have in there? It's a pH thing. Ashes, I want to say they sweeten it,
Okay.
aka add more potash. So the potash is, I believe, is a base. And I'm saying that because, I don't amend. I
Sure.
just, so I'm like,
Or what
trying to
about what
think back to the
about
early days.
what about burying like rotted logs
Oh
in the
yeah.
planter soil?
Yeah, that would do
Yeah.
it. That'd be good. So what that does is that throws organic matter in there, which is what the micro and macroorganisms want to eat. So it's basically the carbon because you got to realize it's also logs and wood are also full of mycelium. So it's mushrooms. And as much as we like mushrooms, earthworms like mushrooms. And earthworms love carbon. So if you want earthworms, a lot of people are like, I want to get earthworms in my soil. Well, you need to put what they eat. You have to set the table, put out your little sign, come one, come all,
Right.
carbon and mushrooms, and then they'll all just. I've had earthworms we put in hugel cultures at the beach in beach sand. Oh, you can't grow in a beach. That's crazy. It's too much salt, too much this. And in the first month, there were earthworms in there. Where do they come from? They're surrounded by beach. There's no
Right.
earthworms in it. So I don't even pretend to know where this stuff's coming from, but
Yeah.
they will be there, and you're inside an
That's-
earthship. I'd be surprised if an earthworm doesn't show up.
Well,
I'd be very surprised.
I've put worms in there.
Oh, well, no, that's smart.
So the only problem is I don't know if they have enough food to survive. I don't know. It's kind of like an experiment, but
Well, so in the biocell, because of what it is, you could probably just throw wood chips in there as mulch around your plants. Now, I
right.
don't generally do wood chips around plants because what I'm trying to do is keep things moist in a different world. In a biocell in an earthship, it's going to stay relatively humid in there.
Yes.
And you're running water through that biocell all the time. The wood chips would be perfect for that. And if they could be, wood chips aren't bark. That's a different thing. Now, wood chips should have bark in it. So wood chips are like you throw a tree through a chipper shredder. So it's got the leaves, it's got the inner and outer bark. Sometimes it has the inside wood, branches that are, however big, right? It's got all the microorganisms that were on that tree. That's wood chips. People will go buy bags of bark and just throw, and then it's pine bark and it's acidic and it's not the end of the world, but It's
Right.
not going to kick off like real wood chips will. And then your earthworms would just go to town. Another thing too is if you're worried about throwing just raw wood chips in there, find a tree on your property and load the wood chips up at the base, like right over the root system of the tree, and let them sit for 6 months. And this will be part of your ongoing cycle as you want to add more things to your biocell. Every 6 months, you can go out there and pull a certain amount of those wood chips in buckets and just start dropping them in the biocell. And it breaks down. I mean, a wood chip that's a chunk like that breaks down into like little pieces like this, pea-sized and maybe even smaller. And if you let it go for a year, it's soil and it'll have earthworms all in it, big old earthworms. So, they stay warm enough in there, even probably through snow, that I think they'd be fine. So what you end up with, and remember, snow builds better soil than forests. Did you
Hmm.
know that? The
Oh yeah.
microorganisms go down and they bring everything with them and they get prepared as it gets colder and they start bringing everything down, down, down. So, so anyway, you get all those wood chips and you're basically like, I do all my paths out of wood chips. And when it's time to put more material on my hugels, I take the path and throw it on the hugel. I can scrape away anything that's still too complex on the top, and underneath it's like potting soil. And so it's always holding material, moisture, minerals, all that stuff that plants like. So instead of having cement paths or stone paths that weeds grow up, I just have wood chips. And
Hmm.
then I take away that top, throw that in there, and I throw more wood chips down for the next 6 months. So that right there is where my, wood chips come from. But if you wanted to, you could just literally get a big dump of wood chips, put it under a tree. Under a tree is a microclimate that just breaks down wood and it
Hmm.
fills it full of fungus and fungus in a good way. This is a balanced, amazing fungus that eats those. And people freak out. They see all kinds of crazy mushroom. Don't worry about it. They're all going to fight it out. You wait until it's done. And when it's all done, you have this nice balance of fungus in there, mycelium, and everything. You put that in your biocell and you should be absolutely fine.
Okay. So you're not growing anything in your Earthship, obviously, because you don't
No,
need to.
no.
Yeah.
Not yet, not yet. I have plenty of gardens out here in
Right.
the surrounding areas. Yeah.
Do you
But
plant,
I don't have a biocell yet.
but do
Because
you,
what I'm creating right now is an above ground root cellar and my other one isn't quite finished.
would you though? Being
Oh
in,
yeah. Oh
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Now the difference is so here's one of the things that I learned from Mike because I started thinking about it. I said, do I want to have angled glass? Because boy, let me tell you,
It'll get hot.
down here in the winter, it could be freezing outside. We can get down to the 20s. So we're at 20 degrees or something. That's nothing compared to you guys. I know it. But 20s is like flipping freezing down here. Okay.
Mhm.
And it'll kill our tropicals in a minute. So that's not a thing you want, right? But you could totally burn everything in your garden with
Oh yeah.
angled glass.
Yes.
So you got to open your vents.
Yeah.
So if I'm not here and the sun comes out and it kills everything in my garden, see what I mean? I can't do that. So what I probably do is more of a southern thing. So I make them they're vertical and my roof comes over it a lot more, right? So
Hmm.
that when it's deep winter, I'm getting the sunlight. Shorter days, more overcast. In the deep winter, I get sunlight and I can just open a few little vents and it'll never freeze and it'll never be that cold. Now, the thing I just showed you, you probably can't see it from here. It looks like a junk because it's a construction site still. But just on the other side of those two walls that lead into it, and I would take you over there, but I would lose
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
how I got there. But just on the other side, I've got what look like armpits. So these are the two walls leading. My thumbs are the two walls leading into the Earthship, and I've got curved walls of tires for the strength, so that all that weight of the dirt doesn't push them over. Okay, in here, these little armpits, as they call them. This one over here has that tree. This one over here is nothing but tropical plants. I don't have to put a heater in there.
Right.
We can go to 20 degrees. I just throw some plastic over it. And I've got the plastic there right now, which is part of what makes it look junky. But when I'm done, I'll have windows I can close. It'll be really nice. But anyway, I throw the plastic over the top of that and they'll go through 20 degrees all night long. And these are things like ice cream bean and tropical bananas. And I've got a jackfruit and some guava and stuff like that that do not freeze. They will not freeze. They won't make it. And I've got some trees on the other side too, and a little armpit on the other side that have been there for 4 years in pots because I still have them not ready to, I don't know where I'm going to put them right now. And I'm too busy working on other things. And they keep getting bigger and bigger. I've got to plant them soon. Um, but they've just been making it through every freeze too. Now I tell you what, if I take it 6 feet from that little pocket and put it out in the open space, and trust me, this has happened to me on accident. They're all dead. Boom, dead.
Hmm.
And then I just have to hoogle them. Throw them in a hoogle culture mountain.
Yeah. Did you pick a certain model or did you just kind of like come up with this, like the actual building itself? Did you
So
just,
I'm coming up with this. So like when I do my greenhouse is on the west side of the building. So
okay.
mine is actually oriented north south. Like most of them are oriented east and west with a
Yeah.
whole glass
Yeah.
across the south. It's so darn hot down here
Yeah.
that I just made mine go north and south. So I get eastern sunlight in the morning and western sunlight in the evening. But in order to get the convection that I need, because I have you probably couldn't see them because the pipes run through the berm. The convection that I need is going to come from the fact that I've got this greenhouse in the back that sits higher than like if this is the hump of
Mhm.
this thing, it's going to sit like another 10 feet higher, and the early morning sunlight's going to hit that, heat that whole thing up, and my vents will be open. I'd like to get like an auto vent that says, oh, the temperature is such and I'm going to open. So that'll probably be what I do. But that'll open the vents and then all day long it's hot. And then in the evening it's hot until the sun goes down. And I have vents that'll go through. There's a wall here you can't see probably, but they've got vents that go through that. And and that allows the cool air to come in, and also I'm going to pull it straight through these vents through the Earthship. Another thing is that because it's so humid, you have to keep that air moving, or it just sits on things and rusts everything out and kills your electronics and that kind of thing. Like
So,
I can't even dry laundry out here. The clothesline is in the yurt.
yeah. So that's that. If I had any complaint about an Earthship, I would say humidity is like the biggest challenge. And I would
Well,
imagine,
so I totally agree, but here's what I'm going to do, and I'll tell you how it works out when I get it done, because I'm literally at that stage now, because I'm just finishing up the inside. Because I don't want any tires to show, and I'm also building it so that I can put earth over the top. So I can't play around. It's solid mass. There's no bottles in it. It's solid mass. Okay.
mhm,
And so anyway, I'm leaving it rough so I can throw clay. So what they do in the Mediterranean for their root cellars, where they keep wine. The wine cellars, the cork cannot dry out and it can't get too moist or it will mold. So they got to have it at a relative humidity of around 40%, which is pretty low.
yeah.
Okay. So what they do is they pack the walls with cob, but it's not just cob. Cob being clay, sand, a certain amount. It's a mixture until it's hard and it's the way you need it. So depending upon what you have, it's a different amount of sand, different amount of clay. So clay and sand and straw. Now, I'm just going to do the stucco layer, so I don't even need the straw. Now, I might do straw if I've got some really deep spots, but I don't even think I'm going to do straw. So it'll be clay and sand. And what they do in the Mediterranean is they throw charcoal in there. So
Hmm.
there's a certain amount of charcoal. So I have to do some measurements. I'll do like 3 or 4 different cobs. Cob means loaf. So you put them together as tests and then you try to break them, right? The ones that just crumble in your hands, not good, you know?
Right.
Although that wouldn't be a terrible stucco, I suppose, but I don't want it to be that wimpy. Then the ones that give you a certain amount of resistance and then snap, that's probably the best. And then the other ones are super hard like a cement that probably aren't going to absorb any moisture. So what I don't want it to be that brittle either. So I want the ones that have a certain amount of give and snap and that kind of thing. And then I mix it for that amount. So what I do is, because when you throw the charcoal in there, the charcoal messes with your mixture. So if you have perfect cob and you throw charcoal in, you got to come up with you might need more clay. This is
Hmm.
what I'm thinking. So as I do those experiments, I have a ton of charcoal I've already made, so I'm ready to go with that. So the idea is that you get this clay sand charcoal mixture, and you put it on the walls, and it's anywhere from 2 to 4 inches deep, depending upon where it is. And I do the walls, and what happens is the moisture in the room gets sucked up into the wall, but
Hmm.
the charcoal keeps it probiotic. So it doesn't go moldy, it doesn't go bacteriological. It balances it out. There's bacteria, I guess, but it's balanced out. Because you have natural bacteria and yeast in the air. You're breathing them. They're all over your body, you know. So
Hmm.
you just want it to be balanced out. Generally, the way you balance it, like with sauerkraut, is with salts. But if you can give it a habitat, the beneficials and all the other things in the charcoal, um, I guess it's just the very act of charcoal having all that surface area they can glom onto, that it'll actually make it so that it's probiotic. And so the most important thing is that I have a probiotic wall that is able to absorb the humidity. And so if I get in there and it gets too dry, we do have some pretty, arid days here at times. The moisture in the wall will come out and keep the room at a relative humidity of 40%. This is the idea. If it gets too humid, which is most of the time, it'll absorb into the wall. And this is why I'm making mine, because over in the root cellars over there, it's about 2 inches thick. Mine is going to be 2 inches to 4 to 6 inches, depending upon where it is. I wanted a lot of clay in there, right? I wanted to be able to
Right.
suck up a lot of moisture. Now, also my pipes going in, and they're normally kind of like, a little bit of a tilt.
Yep.
The intake is here. I've
Sure.
got it so it's a T. Okay, so instead of just being straight, it's a T. So the heat goes in there, and as it cools down, it starts to drop out and it drips below the T. And
Hmm.
I put underground, I put a load of stones. So all the little river rocks are down there. So it can, and I've got it so that it's going to be deep enough. I shouldn't have too many problems with roots trying to get in there and all that. Because it's going to be 5 or 6 feet deep, and this is just going to be grass on the top. Some grasses have deep roots, so we'll see how it goes. But anyway, as the water drips out, it'll also go up that tube, and as it gets colder and colder and colder, it'll start to condense out and drain back down into that tea. So fingers crossed that
Right.
those two techniques keep me, because it's humid in there now with
Yeah.
the doors closed and everything.
Yeah.
So, it's not horrible, but it's enough that on some days I'll see water driplets on the ceiling,
Yes.
It's not good. So if this can eliminate that, I'll be in heaven. And if not, I can throw up a few solar panels and put one tiny little. Oh, actually, you know what I already do have? I got one of those 12, I got a 24 volt because my solar panels are at 24 volts. I have a 24 volt um, air conditioner that's designed for rigs. The guys that drive their semi trucks around and they have to stay overnight in a hot area. You can't leave
Hmm.
the semi truck running because you'll burn so much
Sure.
gas. So they have these little battery powered air conditioners, and they're 12 or 24 volts. So I have a 24 volt one, and a lot of them are 24 volts because I think the truckers are running 24 volts. Anyway, so I can put that in there, and it will actually pull out just like a regular air conditioner a certain
Hmm.
amount of humidity. So that might be another thing. And the only reason I'm doing an air conditioner in there is for the humidity, and just because we like it colder than Earthships get.
Yeah.
Earthships get to 70, it's so hot here, man. When I come in, I want it to be 60,
So what what is the, on a super hot day, is it pretty comfortable in there?
Well, so lately, remember we have our 11-year
Yeah,
cycles,
yeah.
right? When we first got out here, which was 2014, so we're talking, we really started working 2015, so it's been about 10 years.
Hmm.
Um, it was warmish. I mean, warm, like we'd get to, I want to say the high was usually the highest was around 95 degrees, which is nothing compared to what it can get to because there's always that feels like number, but we hit 100 and 101 just a few years ago, but now we're back down to it never gets past 95, sometimes 93. I mean, I think last year our temps were pretty low, and low being, for a lot of people 90 is super hot and they're going to die, but
Hmm.
here 93 is like normal, right?
Hmm.
That's summer,
Right.
it's better than being in a parka and your car's sliding all over the ice. So we put up
Right.
with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's still not comfortable, right? But when it feels like 110, which is generally what we have, um, I can go in there and it's 80, which is like old style Earthships.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, if I can achieve that with zero airflow, at that point, which like I said, right now, I've got the vents are ready to go. The vents are in, everything's ready to go. I'm like every day I get a few hours worth of work in on it. And every day it's a little bit closer. I am literally to the point now, as soon as I can get back over there, it's been raining and I can't put the adhesive down, but I want to adhere that pond liner down. And then I've already got the dirt piled up and ready to go, and it's going to go right over the top of this. Once that dirt goes over the top of it, it's going to be even cooler because I can feel it's iron, and the sun's
Mhm.
like this far from the, so I can feel it, right?
Yeah.
I could probably have done more in the way of insulation, but I don't need to. I might put insulation on the inside and then put wood over it. But what I'm more than likely going to do is just get 3 feet of soil over the top of it, and the sunlight's never going to come near it. So,
Right.
um,
That would
so
make
that'll
a
be that'll
difference.
be quite a bit cooler for sure.
Hmm.
And I have airflow. The airflow is okay. But when the air outside is 89, 90, 95 degrees, because the air is always a little bit cooler than, well, no, the ambient temperature is about 95 degrees. I use my thermometers. Again, how accurate can I be sure they are? I don't know.
Right.
But it says it generally, if I'm looking at my app, even when I'm in Jacksonville, because we go to Jacksonville quite often, I'm looking at Jacksonville, they say it's a certain temperature. It's anywhere from 5 to 6, 7 degrees cooler than they're saying on the news,
Yeah.
which you can't have the car's thermometer and my three thermometers reading similar numbers and to not say they're jacking around with this because when I look at this thing, it says caution, high
Yeah.
temperatures.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I've lived here since the 70s.
Right.
These temperatures aren't any different. In many ways, it might even be cooler right now. So I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, I think we're just getting gamed quite often. But so if I look at those temperatures and if I know what I know temperature wise, every time I get another layer done here, it gets cooler and cooler in there. Like I'm telling you, like right now, if I go and open that door and go in there, because last night was in the 40s, I'll
Hmm.
go in there. It's 40s in there.
Hmm.
But I heat it up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so an Earthship has to have that convection to keep the cool of the berm blowing through there so that it can take your heat away. So, but it'll sit there and be 40 degrees all day long, which to me is a triumph, you
Hmm.
know, even though it's not supposed to get that cold. Remember, Earthships are supposed to be 70 to 71 degrees year round, but it never gets hotter than 80 in there. I've got a
Hmm.
thermometer in there that's calibrated to these thermometers. It never gets, well, it's usually like 79 degrees. Um, and that's before I get the soil up. So once I get the soil up, I can get you some new numbers, and that'll be really good. And once I have the convection going, I've got a little solar panel, and I've got three little vents that suck air out. I haven't even put those in yet. And I want to make it so that I don't need them. I don't want to rely on technology to be comfortable. That's the whole point of this is to not rely on technology. But at the same time, I don't mind a little bit of luxury,
Yes.
especially if it's based on solar panels. And this solar panel I have is like, God, 25 something years old. It's an old cheap solar panel. It still runs those three little fans like it's nothing. So,
Hmm.
I mean, give me
Yeah,
a
it makes we hooked up a radiator fan to our a DC radiator fan in our cooling tubes. So
right.
when the sun's out, those radiator fans kick on
Yeah.
and blows. You can
Yeah.
actually, I mean, you get the convection always, but you put those radiator fans in the cooling tubes,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll speed up when the sun's, in
Mm-hmm.
theory, the hottest time of the day. They'll speed up and then they'll slow down as the sun is going down. And you can feel like you can feel it like 15 feet away from the cooling tube, whereas when it's not, when you don't have mechanics on there, you put your hand in front of it, you can feel it. But if you're 15 feet away, you can't feel that air move.
Right.
Um, so it has, there are some things that we've modified with mechanics to
Right.
help, and also
So,
just
yeah.
responding to some issues, like we've had to put some mechanics in because it's just there's things that have happened that we've had to kind of respond to. Because, like,
Right.
in theory, you just want it to function without any mechanics.
Right. Well,
But
so when we were out, we spent time at Taos, New Mexico at the Earthship Biotexture communities, and we rented the Wabe and we rented one night because it's $500 a night, the Phoenix. And the Phoenix is old style. Even though it has a double, a double greenhouse on it, it's still technically old style in the way it's set up. So, so it got a little warm in there, but we're talking like it's 100 degrees outside, and a little warm was, you know, upper 70s,
That's what, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
when we have like 120-degree, like feels like temperature outside,
Mhm.
um, I think the hottest it got in here was like 77. But then when we hooked
Right.
up those radiator fans,
Right.
it dropped it down like another 4 degrees. So it was like
Yeah.
73.
So the only complaint I had for the Wavy was perfect.
Okay.
I mean, you walked in there, it was 70 degrees. And this was all in the same week. So it's the same temperature,
Same
right?
temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, the Phoenix is actually not as comfortable, even though it's still very comfortable. It's not as perfectly comfortable as the Wavy, which is one of the new ones. And they're making them even better now, by the way. The Wavy is the global model. The new ones are even better. And I can't remember what they call the new ones, but so anyway, but
Well,
I
that
still had this
dude.
issue where I like to have a little moving air.
Hmm.
I like a little moving air. And so there wasn't even a fan in there. And I thought, well, if I have one of these, I definitely have to have enough to run a fan. Well, how do you run a fan naturally? Well, fans, I mean, unless you have a stream rolling by and some Gilligan's Island stuff going, you know what I mean? You're gonna have, you're gonna have to have some electricity. How do you get lights? You have to have a little bit of electricity, right? So we have our little solar panels to run those fans, and the fans work, like you said, work really well. Now, so what other? But see, like I say to myself, if I had to, and the power went out, going from 40 degrees to 80 degrees is is awesome. Like wintertime, 40 degrees, we don't even turn on the heater.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you probably don't either. I mean, I don't know, maybe you do. I don't know. 40 degrees is like to us is nothing. And when it gets up to 80 degrees inside, 80 degrees, this is without the soil over the top. You're at 80 degrees. You go outside, just if that feels hot, just go outside for a few minutes. When you come back in, it feels cold again.
Yeah.
It's like I'm
Correct.
not kidding. It
Yes.
feels good. You're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's nice. So anyway, I could totally survive with all that with it in its current situation, and I'm betting you could too. Like with yours, it's probably doesn't even fluctuate that much. What are
No.
you like? What are you at? Maybe like 65 to 75 or something like that?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. And like even like 65 in here, it can drop to like 63 if it gets like 20 below zero.
right.
Um, but it doesn't feel it's weird because like 63 in here versus like a normal house. It
Hmm.
I don't know why, but it feels warmer. Like I
Right,
would be pretty chilled if it was 63 in like a normal house. But
right.
in here, for some reason, the temperature feels different. I,
It could
I
be a
can't
humidity.
explain.
It could be a
Could be,
humidity
could,
thing.
it's probably humidity.
Yeah,
Another theory I have is like because, a normal house has like air pockets where it's like totally different temperatures, like all around the
right.
house. And I feel like that might be why it feels a little
Hmm.
chilly in a house. Because like this is just like stable, unless you're in the greenhouse, because the greenhouse fluctuates mad. But
Yeah.
like if you're by a wall or in a living space, there's no real temperature fluctuation, or it takes like a lot to move.
Hmm.
It takes a ton of energy to move temperature one way or the other. Like we have a wood stove,
Hmm.
and we can light that sucker, and the walls just absorb it instantly. Like
Right.
it
Yeah.
it takes like in a normal house, if it was just a air, air insulated air, it would warm up in like 2 seconds. But like
Yeah.
this building, you light a fire and it's like it feels good, but like you can't move the temperature
Right.
one way or the other. Very
It's
it
the
takes
thermal mass. It's
yeah.
the thermal. Now, do you have to use it every day, or does that thermal mass radiate it over time?
Yeah, I mean, like if it's
Yeah.
20 below zero, I've kind of became addicted to the fireplace. So like I burn more wood than we actually need to.
Right.
But it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's like something to do.
No, I
Um,
agree. I
but
agree.
yes, I mean, like if we light a fire overnight, it stays warm until the next day. You can still
Hmm.
feel it. And then if it's
Hmm.
sunny out, no problem. Like it'll
Right.
get, even if it's like 20 below here. Like the other day, it was 45 degrees below zero here.
Wow.
Kid, kid school got canceled,
Sure.
and we didn't run the fireplace. It was sunny out because it's always more sunny when it's cold out here.
Mm.
And I mean, the greenhouse was 85 degrees.
Right.
Yeah, and the living space was like 67. It
Right.
was 20 below zero out. It was
Right.
insane.
Right.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
45, it was 45 below zero with wind chill, but I think it was like 25 below zero, like recorded or whatever.
Yeah. What you're learning though is all the little ins and outs of things, like just being able to burn a certain amount of fire in your wood stove and it lasts a day. That's a good thing to know. And by the way, I mean, you could live without it, but if you want to be more comfortable, I'm 100% for having a little air conditioner if you're in the south, or a little wood stove if you're in the north,
Well,
or
another
whatever, fans or whatever.
another reason why we burn the wood is because it's dry heat. So it
And
does.
yes,
This house is like, even in the winter when everything's closed up, I mean, it's the humidity is something that I have to like monitor. We're kind of
right,
like we're kind of getting like used to what we need to do to respond, but
right,
like, you have to like this climate is just different. It's not New Mexico where there's like,
yeah,
the humidity, you have to watch it because you
right.
could run into some problems, and we have ran into a couple.
Well, the Earthship people told me when I asked them, because I mean, all those many years ago, we were sitting around the campfire with Mike Reynolds. I was asking
Mhm.
him crazy questions, and he was
Mhm.
answering everything, so it was awesome. But if you have a humidity problem, he says just beef up your solar panels and put a dehumidifier in it.
That's
That's
what we did.
okay. Makes
We
sense.
we run dehumidifiers when it gets too humid and
Yeah.
all kind like we put a ceiling fan in the closets. Closets are like notorious. I feel
Oh, yeah.
because like have you noticed that most Earthships have their cooling tubes come through the closets?
Oh, right.
You've
That makes
seen
sense.
that, but like because like a lot of the Earthships, they have like a California closet where they're not the
Right.
closet's almost behind the bed,
It's behind the bed. Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
Well, they do have
Makes
some,
sense.
yeah, they do have some closets, and I've noticed that a lot of the cooling tubes go through the closets. I'm like, well, that's kind of stupid because then you have to like,
Open the closet door.
yeah, right, your closet's not like a closet anymore. Well,
Right.
so we have a closet that in our bedroom that it's been an issue, but like I put a ceiling fan in there.
Okay.
We put ceiling fans in all of our rooms, and those run 24/7, which it doesn't take much off the solar panels,
No.
especially during the day. But yeah, we've had to do a few things and just monitor it. It's just
Well, I mean, when you go to Taos, they want to show you that it's just 100% natural. And
hmm
and in the newest ones, it is amazing. But at the same time, some of us might want to add a fan, ceiling fans,
right.
wood stoves. Like the guy that's in Alaska, he has a fireplace. I
hmm
mean, honestly, the Phoenix has a fireplace, so they build them with fireplaces. A fireplace is like, so for me, think about this concept. I'm thinking about using a fireplace to cool mine. Okay, because here's what happens here. We'll have in the middle of summer plenty of stormy, overcast days where it's hot and humid. And so the only way for me to get the convection to happen is if I have a heat source
hmm
out in the greenhouse. So
hmm
I'm going to have a rocket mass heater just and or an open fire pit that I can light, and it'll go straight through the greenhouse top and or roof, and I can run that air and just literally burn up the humidity too, burn up the humidity, pulling it through the berm and into the house and out of the house and through there so I can get that cool air in. And again, I'm hoping that my other two humidity mitigating techniques will work. And at the end of the day, if they don't, I mean, it's no problem to just, I do have that little air conditioner. I could turn that
Yeah.
little air conditioner on,
Yeah.
and uh, and I want to use that, like, my walls. are 4 feet thick all the way around. Like you have a U, basically a long, wide U, you know.
Hmm.
Mine is like 4 feet thick all the way around with little doors.
Hmm.
And there's a 4 feet thick in there. So at the end of the day, mine's going to be a bit different, and I'm not entirely sure how that's going to shake out. So
Right.
it'll be good for us to keep trading notes to see how it
Yes.
goes.
I mean, I will say, like, yeah, dealing with, it's a good thing that you're experimenting on like a smaller
Hmm.
scale because you can respond a lot. Have you seen
Hmm.
that Earthship in Mayaca,
Mm-mm. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I have.
Florida?
Yeah, maybe I
It's
have.
like
Is it the double Earth ship facing each other?
yeah, and then a greenhouse in the middle.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I've seen it. As a matter of
I've
fact, they
heard
tried to
rumors.
build it. Yeah,
I've heard rumors that that thing is not performing very well. Um, and that's like a
it uh,
that's a huge Earthship. It's like
it was originally built by a group of people who had
yes,
just done the academy, I want to say,
yeah.
and a guy with some money. He ran out of money before it was done because, if it were me, I would have built one half of the Earthship and quit.
Hmm.
I would have built one half and then see if I had the money for the other half. But this is that whole concept of the hurricane Earthship where the two of them facing each other. So they quit. So it took him like almost a decade to sell it to somebody.
Yes.
The next guy buys it and then finishes it out. So it's not like it was built start to finish but again, it's also based on Earthships from I don't know how long ago. So they're not quite performing. I mean,
I'd
older
like
Earthships
to I'd
don't
like to hear
perform as
I'd
well.
like to just hear what how it's working now.
I would too. It might be something for me to go and see if I can find somebody. I think I know some people who actually help work on it. Maybe there's some contact information, but it is
Right.
a private home now, so it's hard to say. But
Yeah.
it's like going back to Taylor County where we built that one. Like, hey guy, we built this back in the day.
Right.
Can
Hey.
get off my property.
Right, right.
He
Hey.
flat out told me, he goes, yeah, I don't ever want to see you guys again. Said, okay, well, I got you. I completely understand. I completely understand.
Yeah,
But I was
it
asking him, hey, maybe in a couple of years we can come back and check it out. I don't ever want to see you guys again. I said, okay, I got it.
yeah, he is private guy
Yeah, yeah.
for sure, for sure.
But yeah, so the one in South Florida, though, it's got a long history of, I remember one of the guys, what's his name? I know him. We used to do Earth Skills together. Byron? Anyway, one of the guys that actually went down there and helped them build that the first time and actually came back, he was on both builds. Um, he says, I'm never doing another ship again. Too much labor, too much this, too much that. It's like part of what I don't think that the Earthship biotecture guys get is that they have a well-oiled machine that builds Earthships. They know from start to finish every little hasp, screw,
Hmm.
position. And yeah, they can change it. They
Hmm.
change every one of them is a little bit different,
Hmm.
but they know exactly where all of it works and they can bring in unskilled labor to just knock them out. Because basically, like the reason this is so awesome to me is I can just one guy build it, just takes little chunks all day long. I don't ever really need 50 people working on it at any one time. And I am literally, I mean, it is like right now, I lock the doors. It's a full-fledged building. It doesn't look that great from the outside. It looks like a pile of materials. But once all that's cemented in, all the cracks between the tires, it's going to look beautiful. So I've got a little bit of work, but it is a finished building at this point, usable, and it is fireproof and hurricane proof. But everything that I've done out here, as far as Earthships are concerned, in 10 years, the Earthship crew would have gotten it done in a month.
You're right.
Easy.
Did you use the is it it's do you use pretty much sand there? Is it pretty sand?
Um, I actually have been, this is part of what slows me down is that I have to come up with money so I can buy clay.
So
When
you're
I say,
not no, but pounding the tires, you didn't
mhm.
you're using a different type of soil.
So here's how it works. All my clay is 15 feet below me. Like, because I know all my neighbors that have ponds dug, that's
Hmm.
where it starts, 14, 15 feet. So on top of that, it's confectioner's sugar sand.
So you
You
can't
know,
pound that really.
you could, but
Be hard.
this guy, $100 for a dump truck load, so I can get 10 dump truck loads and just start pounding it away, right? So over the years, I don't. I was keeping track. I just stopped. I mean, I should have kept track, but
So
honestly,
you wouldn't necessarily use the soil that's in the ground. You
yeah,
could.
the soil that's here is just like a fine sand.
Doesn't bind enough to pound, really.
No, no. And so like I've developed a lot of this into a topsoil, and you're not supposed to use any organic matter in there anyway. So I can't really use
Right.
that even. So I
Right.
just buy this guy's digging a pond. He's got this whole big piece of property about 10 minutes away. Now, they're not even that far, 10 minutes away, maybe. And he'll load up a dump truck full and come and dump it for me. He'll do 10 loads at a time, and I buy them, and then I finish them, and then I buy more, and I finish them, and I buy more. And
For $100, that's not bad.
no, it's not
But
bad. It's funny. I used to be before I bought this land. I was like, yeah, I was doing all kinds of cob work for people, building little cob houses and cob ovens and stuff. And I'd say, man, clay is so heavy that it doesn't make sense for you to make anything out of cob unless it's on your property.
hmm
Because I mean, I would get this really expensive double axle trailer and put a tiny, what, 4, 5, 6 yards of clay on the back, not much, and it was
hmm
killing that trailer. I
Right.
was like, dang, man, stuff's so heavy. So I used to say, man, my kingdom for a dump truck load of clay. And then I found this guy. I'm like, oh, what do you know? So anyway, yeah, I get those loads out here, and it's a lot of work on the tractors. The tractors are like, what are you doing to me, man? Oh my God, but they can do it.
Yeah.
But now, like I say, what I've got here is what he calls topsoil. Topsoil down here is a joke. It's basically sand with some stuff in it, some kind of something
hmm
in it. But I could totally use that in my cement mixture just by sifting it out a little bit.
hmm
So anyway, everything's a thing. So yeah, in permaculture, what we always say is everything depends. Can you do this? Depends. Can you do that? Depends. Well, it's the same thing with building an earthship. Can I do this? It depends. When we were in Taylor County, Georgia, everything was clay. You get it right there on the site. He dug a
hmm
pond. Remember that big pond? He dug
hmm
a pond right there. He had everything he
hmm
needed. So he had the perfect place to build with the perfect building materials. How many of those desert dwellers said, this is the perfect building material for an earthship? They knew damn well clay was the thing. So
Right.
this is why, because I'm so close, I said, first of all, my property is about 10 feet lower. Like where I am right now is probably about 3 feet. I'm probably level, but I'm above on a deck. I'm probably about 4 or 5 feet above the ground. If I'm on the flat ground, it's probably about 5 feet, and then I go that way. It's about 10 feet lower than the land than the road. Okay, so I'm already dealing with the fact that it's like a bowl. Like if you look at a big square,
Mhm.
there's a bowl here, and all of that's dry land, but it all kind of goes to the bowl. And it's so gradual. It's not a big deal. It's very nice. But I said to myself, I'm not going to start digging up dirt on my land to build this thing if I can just go buy it because I don't want to lose any dirt. I want to add some dirt. But I have actually a nice wetland. I don't want to fill it in. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to add it in places. So I've just been buying it so I don't have to dig any pits. Now I'm probably going to put a pond at the top of the property. And one of the things you do in permaculture is you capture water as high as you can and you let it
Mhm.
gravity feed down to places. Um, but I'm not entirely sure I'm ever going to do that. I haven't needed it. Like, agricultural watering is not as necessary if you have a small enough project that you can just build soil so it's, the organic matter is sucking it all up. I used to do a lot of rainwater capture because I thought I was going to need it when they turned the water off and my plants would die. No, I've never had to worry about that. They do turn the water off, but you don't have to worry about it because none of my systems need watering. I mean, they might grow a little faster if I had water on them every day, but they grow fine, so I don't worry about it. Yeah, but so as far as clay is concerned, I just get the best clay that the guy has for sale up here, Mr. Thrift, and I pounded that into those tires. Every one of those tires is a wheelbarrow and a half of dirt on average of clay. And I
Mm.
if I counted those, I'd be able to tell you how much I got. But
It's
he drops off, I think it's 20 yards per dump, which is not bad. That's a lot of dirt.
they take so much dirt.
They do. Yeah, firsthand. But when it's all said and done, man, every single one of those is like, what do you say, 1,600 of yours tires for yours?
hmm
Yeah, every one of those is like a 1,600th of a perpetual forever air conditioning unit.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
it could take a direct hit from a Scud missile and you'd be okay.
Yeah, that's yeah.
You know? So, so it's
Right.
like, it's something to be said for, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
it's
You
forever.
probably aren't going to get any hurricanes up there, but tornadoes, I don't know. It'd have to take a
Yeah.
direct hit.
Yeah,
If it's
there's tornadoes and strong winds, and
Mhm.
it's we just watch the storms kind of pass by and actually get
Yeah.
excited because we get water.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it starts raining down here and it never stops, I go, okay, okay. Don't send out any negative vibes because you know what it's like when it's a drought.
Right,
I just love
exactly.
it. Just love it. Just try to deal with the abundance, just love it. And so that's what we do, and it works out.
That's awesome. Well, I think we should wrap this up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is
Almost
there
2 hours?
yeah, we got to check back with your progress and maybe get some videos of it.
For sure.
So what's the best way to for people to reach you?
Oh, that was my daughter. Um,
Your YouTube channel?
yeah, well, no. Well, yeah, you could let me give you a bunch of things. So Star Walker, so you're walking in the stars, Star Walker Project, all one word in YouTube, I believe. I don't go out there every day. And I also don't consider my channel anything more than a place to store supplemental videos. So because
Yeah,
I do a lot of classes, and when I'm
same.
doing the classes, I just go, okay, here's where you can find that video. And I just upload a video for something. And I'll create videos and stick them up there. So it's not like there's a channel where I got it every day, there's a thing or whatever. So anyway, when you go out there, if you have any questions as to why is this video out here, tell me and I'll send you the PDF or whatever for the presentation or whatever. And in some cases, I don't want YouTube to know why that video is out there. So that's why there's nothing except this is how you make this tea or how you do whatever. But that's one. And then Facebook, as much as I despise Facebook, Permaculture Jacks. So perma, as in permanent, perma culture space JAX, because it started over in Jacksonville. So it's Permaculture Jacks. And I didn't want people to have to type out Jacksonville.
Hmm.
In Jacksonville's little abbreviated letters for like LAX
Hmm.
and our airport's JAX. So Jacksonville's JAX, JAX. So that's a way. And let me think. That's probably the best two ways. If you can find me on Permaculture Jacks, you can probably just you know, do a private message or something if you're interested in this or anything else, and I can point you to some things. I've got some other stuff, but I try to keep it. I'm pretty, honestly, I'm a very private person. I
Hmm.
don't even really like when I turned that camera to show you what was going on over here. Nobody else sees that ever. This
Right.
is the only place because,
Yes.
and it's weird. It's like, I know how people can like dig you up. They can figure out where you are. It doesn't matter how much security you put down. And I've got a decent amount of internet security. Um, and I've had over the years, I used to have classes out here, and I would bring people out here to do events and things. And it just got weirder and weirder and weirder. People are getting more and more angry and a little bit more twisted in their minds. And I don't know what it is. You can't
Hmm.
have a conversation with somebody if you use the wrong word or concept or whatever. Immediately you're enemies. And it's like,
Hmm.
really? Like,
Hmm.
it's so weird. And it's not everybody, it's a certain group. I won't want to point fingers, but they have
Yeah.
become they used to be all about peace and love and cooperation. And now they're like, it's my way or I'm your enemy, your enemy forever. Guys, you're going to have to get around this. You're going to have to
Yes.
figure out how to stop this.
Yes.
This is not doing anybody any good. And it's definitely destroying you. It's
Hmm.
not destroying me so much, but I literally took my address and my contact information off the web as best as possible. It's never going to
Hmm.
be perfect. And, stop doing anything unless I'm just at somebody else's house or somebody else's property. So
Hmm.
it's sad. It's a weird thing, but so those two things are probably the best. I don't know. Yeah, you can message people on YouTube. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you can message me or you can do comments. I will probably get a comment if you put a comment, but messages are better. And you can probably find me on Facebook under my name, Alexander Ojeda. And I can't remember what the picture looks like on Facebook. Let me see if I can find it. Um, Let me pull that up. I'll switch over. Oh, yeah, it's a picture of the old scout, and you can see the yurt. And you can also see my old chicken, Toby. His name's actually Albert, but we called him Toby. Don't ask me why. So it'll be another 5 minutes. So anyway. But yeah,
Well,
I've got all kinds of things going on that we could talk about, just so many different things. So
well,
we'll,
you're a wealth of knowledge. I really
well,
appreciate
thank you, brother.
you coming on and sharing your wisdom, and we'll
All
probably check
right.
in a few months to see how you're doing.
Absolutely. Every one of us has to be doing something and sharing it. That's how it works.
Yeah, for sure. All right.